I remember the first television I seen. I was in California. It was a black and white, and it was about the car races. And before that, we had a radio, Florida model radio, and my dad would sit at the radio and listen to the news, and he'd tell us kids, "Will you be quiet so I can hear the news?" You couldn't see it, but he wanted to hear it. And then later, at the movies, they have the news that they play two different movies and paid a dime to get in. And when they'd have intermission, then they would have the news, and they'd show Roosevelt and Churchill and Hitler and the warplanes and what was going on. And they'd also have comics that they play, like Donald Duck or Popeye the Sailor Man, and it was just, times were so different then. One day, my mother went to town to pay some bills. She caught the bus, and I came home from school. She wasn't there, and I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna make some candy, make some fudge. So I started making it. I got it going pretty good. And I seen my mother coming up the street, and I knew I was in trouble, so I took the pan and pushed it under my bed. My mother come in, of course she could smell it. And she said, "Okay, who's been messing around in my kitchen?" And I just looked at her. "Ruth, what have you been doing?" And I said, I made some candy. And she said, "Where is it?" And I said, "It's under my bed." And so I brought it out and took it to her, and it never did come together, so I wasn't a very good candy maker.
What's most different about now, now how things are right now, to when you were growing up? What's changed the most?
Well, I remember my dad putting lard. They had this red box with real lard in it, and he put that on our shoes when we'd go out in the rain and that, to keep the water off from us. And I remember that, and going to the movie for a dime. And I remember when it snowed, I would grab the shovel and shovel people's sidewalks off, and they'd give me a dime. And you could buy, for 50 cents, you could buy a whole sack full of things. Everything was so cheap. And now, you can't get in the movie for a dime anymore.
It's like $11.
Yeah. And we got, remember our mother would buy us school clothes before school started, and we'd have about 2 sets of clothes, and they had to last the whole year, and we would wear them to school, and we'd have to take them off when we come home, and they were either washed or we had to hang them up in a closet. And my mother just shut our bedroom door when we went to school. When we come home, we had to make our bed, and then we had to, my sister and I had to set the table, and my mother did the cooking. She wouldn't let us in the kitchen then. But after we ate, then my sister and I took turns washing and wiping the dishes, and we just had a sink. I remember we had this bathtub that had 4 legs on it, And the one house that we lived in, I was about 4 years old, I guess. My father rented it, and it had a hole in the bathroom on the floor, and there was a shingle over the hole. And I was in the bathroom combing my hair, and all of a sudden I seen the shingle going up and down, up and down. And it scared me, and then all of a sudden it flipped off to the side, and a cat came up through the hole. And he must have went under the house and found his way up to that hole. But I was scared. I let out a holler and I ran. We had sleds, and everybody in the neighborhood had sleds. And we'd go to a hill when it was snowing, and we'd pick the sled up and run with it, and then kind of jump on it and lay down and go down the hill on it. And sometimes the boys would, we called it bulldogging us. They would grab a hold of our sled and swing us around. And we did that.